Welcome to Super Agents Live. This is the one place where you can come and hear the most successful people in real estate. You'll hear how these super agents built their businesses, how they stay productive, and how they stay motivated. Who am I? My name's Toby Salgado, and I made my first million in real estate. And I'm your host for the next 30 minutes while we talk to yet another amazing real estate entrepreneur. Stay tuned.
Let's go! Yeah!
On the show today, we have Leo Pareja. Leo is the top performing agent for Keller Williams in the world and is billed as the most successful Latino in the real estate market today. In 2011, he was ranked number 5 in the nation by Wall Street Journal, and in that same year, he was named one of the 30 under 30. Last year, he had a whopping $83 million in sales volume. Hey, Leo, thanks for taking the time out today.
Thanks for having me, Toby.
So, Leo, I gave a brief overview of your background, but tell us a little bit about yourself and your business.
Sure. I do high volume. I've been doing it for many years now, and I think one of the keys to getting to a high volume business is picking a niche and becoming highly specialized at it.
What did you do before you got into real estate?
I was in high school. I've been doing real estate since I was 19 years old. I got licensed at 19 and started working for a realtor when I was 18 years old.
Wow. I mean, so that's early, and it just resonated with you. What drew you to real estate?
So I went to high school and college during the tech bubble, and that was a very good lesson in how bubbles can be formed and pop. I was getting recruited out of high school to do graphic design and web design because I'd won awards in high school for graphic design by companies like AOL and such that are in my local market. And my freshman year of college, part of the deal was I had to go get a college degree. And my freshman year of college, the tech bubble blew up, and $150,000 offers disappeared or turned to $40,000 positions. And I took a class in entrepreneurship and wrote a business plan on what it would cost to start a graphic design company. And after 6 months of calling and researching, it turned out I needed about $400,000 and 2 years to break even. And that's when I started looking around for other opportunities. Read Rich Dad Poor Dad when I was 18, and it was the first time that someone explained, cash flow, leverage, whether it's time, people, or money. And it kind of opened up my eyes to the opportunity.
Yeah, that's interesting. I was part of that tech bubble. My first company that was in '99, and we went out and raised $7 million to start that. And those are the days where you had to have a rack of servers in the back room. So for some people, if they hear $400,000 to start a graphic design company, that sounds crazy. But in those days, it wasn't. It's not like it is today at all. So that was a little bit lucky or fortunate for you that you went through that. And now you found you found your passion, which is real estate, and you're killing it. Through the years, I'm sure you've seen a lot of people have success and have failure. But overall, what do you think the single biggest hurdle is that real estate agents have to overcome?
Well, first off, I think a real estate agent needs to understand that when you enter the real estate space, you're opening up a business. And, I mean, that in a nutshell is all of it. Most folks don't understand that you have to have a business plan, a budget, sources of revenue. And with a business come expenses. I don't think that you can even break through the first barrier and start performing without planning on investing, which is your marketing, whether you're using staff or virtual assistants. But there's just no way that you can do it all and even aim to hit a mediocre level, in my opinion.
Yeah, you know what? I agree with that, and I hear that often. That and it's funny, that question actually I have written as what's the biggest hurdle that real estate entrepreneurs have to overcome? Because real estate agents are actually entrepreneurs. They're actually building a company. They have to go out, create that budget, hire a team, and replicate themselves. People who try to work in their business instead of on it typically don't reach the level of success that you have. How did you? Was it your background? You took that class in entrepreneurship. Is that what helped you realize that selling real estate was actually a business?
No, actually, I did not plan on being a realtor. I wanted to be a real estate investor. And I ran into a gentleman who my father met at a conference, non-related to real estate. And my father said, my son's obsessed with real estate. He's reading every book he can. Will you talk to him? And I called the gentleman, and I offered to go work for him for free for the summer. And he said he was not interested in babysitting snot-nosed teenagers, what he told me.
Oh, man.
But if I was serious about real estate, to call this other gentleman out in Colorado, that he would teach me what I wanted to learn. So I called this gentleman out in Colorado, who on the phone told me he could teach me everything I wanted to do, and that would cost me $10,000. And at that point, that might as well have been $100,000 because I didn't have that kind of money. But I made a decision, and it's a concept I've used many times throughout my life, which I call throwing your hat over the fence, where you get so committed that, you kind of burn the bridge and you're committed to the fight. So I sold my car that I had bought senior year of high school and paid off through my freshman year of college, gave a strange man $10,000 and had about $7,000 left over. Bought a old Accord for $5,000 and had $2,000 left, and signed a contract that I had him coach me for a year, which was an intense coaching program where we role played every day. Read a lot of what he told me to read, and part of the coaching, he made me get a real estate license so I'd have a better understanding of comps and valuation and be able to earn a commission when I bought real estate or sold it. And I actually was resistant, but he said it was required. And that year, about 6 months into the coaching, I got into an argument with my landlord in college, and we had to find a new house because I was a frat boy back then, and we had 5 guys making a bunch of noise. And I was advised by a mentor that I should buy a house, and I thought that was impossible. But I spoke to a loan officer, and they said I had excellent credit because I bought that car and paid it off. And I got approved for an FHA loan as a non-occupant co-borrower if I convinced my father to co-sign my loan. So I went to go have dinner with my father that night. Said, if you lend me your signature and the down payment for 12 hours, I would really appreciate it. And he asked me how that would work. And I borrowed 3% from my dad for the down payment. Closed on the transaction. Since I was licensed, I got 3%, gave it back to him. Oh. Bought my first house for no money down. Got the seller to pay all the closing costs. Rented out 3 rooms out for $500 apiece, and lived rent-free. And said, oh, my God, there is something to this. So that summer I went and talked to all my fraternity brothers and said, let me talk to your mom and dad. Wrote a little script and sold 11 houses in 3 months, made about $50,000. And I just turned 20. At 20, that is big money.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that is a fascinating, inspiring story. So this is your first foray into real estate investing, and it put you on the path to become a realtor. But, talk to me about, you're a young guy. You sold your car. Now, hold on a second. Were you in Colorado, or did you have to move to Colorado?
No, just over the phone conference call. I've always been a D.C. Metro resident. Got you.
That's a giant leap of faith, because you could have sold your car, gave this guy $10,000, and got nothing out of it. I mean, how did you get to the point where you were able to believe that this guy could teach you to be successful? And I mean, how did you get to that level of faith? That's an incredible story to me.
I've always read a lot of personal growth and attended seminars. I've been quoted in other publications that I've spent more on personal growth than I ever did on my college education. And it's that thirst for knowledge to find what the next best thing is. And as a mentor, I interviewed him, read a bunch of reviews, called some folks who'd been mentored by him, and everyone said great things. And it's going back to what I said. It's investing in your business, which when you get started, you are the business. The stuff that goes on between your 2 ears is so important. I had an agent with Keller Williams call me yesterday from North Carolina, and his question was, as a 24-year-old, how do I handle objection about my agent? I said, there's no objection. It's all in between your 2 ears. You have to make the decision that you're good enough that you can handle the business. And at any point in your career, you have a value proposition. When I was 19, I literally would tell sellers, be like, you're my only client. I have no wife and kids. I will be here every day if I have to. I'll show it myself. I'll hold it open every day. Now that I have a large team, I say, for the same price that you're hiring a new agent, you'll have a staff and a system and everything else. But no matter what stage in your career you're in, you have a value proposition as long as you understand and you believe that you have value to deliver to a client.
Right. No, that is good. So you got this coach. He did a lot for you. and I would imagine, I'm going to ask that. So do you think that you would be achieving the same level of success that you are today if you did not have that coach or mentor?
So I've always had a coach in my entire career. Since the
Wow.
first 6 months, I've always paid someone to coach me.
Wow.
So the answer is yes. I know I would have succeeded, but it's how long and how difficult. The greatest athletes in the world, the greatest performers in the world have coaches. And most of the time they have multiple coaches. Like, basketball player will have a throwing coach, an endurance coach, because they're experts at one thing. And my opening statement is become highly specialized.
Yeah.
So I seek out people who can show me how to become highly specialized. And to me, if I can pay someone to shorten my learning curve and bang my head against the wall, I'm going to pay all day long.
Absolutely. That is great. So, I think I would agree with you that having a mentor, having a coach is extremely helpful. You obviously believe that because even at, you're a super agent and you still have a coach. Most new agents or most aspiring agents do not have a coach. They do not have a mentor. And maybe it's because they don't have that 10 grand or they're not willing to sell their car. How do you go out and find a mentor if you let's say for a new agent, they can't afford one. They can't afford that 10 grand.
So, I get asked all the time, if you could start over, what would you do? I said I'd go find the biggest agent in my market that I want to become and go work for him or her. I think that's the shortest path to success. Not all people get along, so find the one you mesh with, the one you want to aspire to be, and absorb as much as possible. You could, and when I meet a new agent, I also say it's important which office you go to, because if you're surrounded by folks that all do 20 transactions, the world looks one way. Yeah. I probably had 5-6 years where I could never break over 50 transactions, and when someone did 300 to 400 or 500 transactions, it wasn't in the realm of my possibility. The first year I broke through that, I went to 192, then 400 and 600, and I now know all the top agents in the country. Most of them that you interviewed when you emailed me, I'm personal friends with, and the people you surround yourself with starts changing completely in the reality. And when somebody says, do this, it's completely normal, accessible, and I have access to people to ask these questions. So you just start operating at a different level.
Right. That goes back to Jim Rohn says that you're the average of the 5 people that you spend the most time with. And if you are an agent out there and you hang around with 4 broke people, chances are you're going to be the 5th. One of the things you said early on, so you go out and find somebody that you admire, go out and work for them. You're willing to work for the first guy. You said, "Hey, I'll work for you for free for a year." Is that something how does somebody do that? And so if I'm a new agent, I find you, Leo. I'm like, "Hey, Leo, you're killing it."
So I'll give you 2 examples. I have one guy who works with me who found me about 4 years ago, called me up, said, "I want to talk to you. I want to meet you." He drove down from 2 states away and said, "I've read about you. I want to be like you. I want to come learn from you. I will do anything that you tell me to. I'll start at whatever place you want me to." He just passed his license. He then got a license in my state. He asked me to invest $2,000 for his move because he didn't even have that. But he promised to pay it back, and it just felt like a genuine statement. He moved. He started making $10 an hour for me, and last year I paid him $192,000 in his commission splits because he just absorbed everything. And I had clients who call me and say it's funny to be with him because he sounds like me, he acts like me, he talks like me. But it's just the willingness to absorb as much as possible,
and having a level of humility to do that. For you, I mean, so you've had this meteoric rise. I mean, you are a sponge. You want to learn as much as you can from as many people as you can, or at least successful people.
I'll interrupt you because I always laugh when I hear meteoric rise. I said, yeah, it was a 12-year overnight success.
Right, yeah. For you, was there ever a time where you felt like it was just too hard and you wanted to quit? And how did you push through that roadblock and find success?
I mean, I've told my mother when I was younger, and now my wife, I say 28 days out of the year, I feel like Superman, and 2 days out of the month, I just don't want to get out of bed, because as an entrepreneur, which I've been my entire adult life since I could sign my own name, you always have those thoughts. Am I going to do it again next month? what happens when the market changes?
Right.
Can I survive this? You know, we
Am I a
live
fraud?
in DC, so yeah, well, we're in DC, so we get a lot more government chatter of, you know, sequestration and government shutting down. I'm like, what if my entire business model disappears?
Yeah.
And I don't think you'll ever quiet those sounds. So, you know, to me, success is completely the journey. I mean, it's the process. You know, you're constantly correcting and overcorrecting and testing and refining. And, you know, I have a saying where you have to embrace failure, and I'm talking about utter ridiculous failure. Now, I can't tell you how many times I spent $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 on a idea that didn't work out, but part of it is you have to see it through.
Yeah.
To see if it even worked.
I recently heard a guy talk about failure. He said, "Hey," he's talking about, you know, a failure, and he said, hey, "Lessons cost a lot." No, I'm sorry. Lessons cost money, and good ones cost a lot. So, you know, there's always something to learn from wherever you failed. What do you think the single biggest thing is that most realtors get wrong?
Oh, I think the hardest part is a lot of people get into the business because they get seduced by the idea of flexibility and high income. And the funny thing is the highest performing realtors I've met, you know, work 10, 12 hours a day and aren't flexible at all. So it's sticking to the routine and treating it like a business, behaving like you're at a job, and doing your sales calls and time blocking and doing stuff that by definition would attract folks to the industry. It's the quite opposite that gets you there. So I really just understanding that this is not part-time, that this is not something you can do on your own time, because no one cares if you fail. That's the biggest thing. When you have a job, you have someone to hold you accountable, i.e. the person paying you your paycheck. But here it's just you. So if you feel like sleeping in on a Tuesday, you can sleep in on a Tuesday, and you can do it on a Wednesday and a Thursday as well. So,
yeah,
you know, I get up at 6 in the morning every single day. I work out for an hour. I'm at the office before 8. I have, you know, clean breakfast. I eat 4 or 5 times a day, small, clean meals, because I need that much energy and fuel to run at the pace I run. I tell folks I live in dog years because I do more in a week than most people do in a year.
Wow. You know, for you, so you know, here's my question, and I want to I'm gonna ask it in a different way. But so normally I ask you what your aha moment is, and I think it's gonna be go out and find a niche. Am I correct on that?
In what sense the aha moment? In my career or in?
Well, yeah, in your career. Well, let me just ask. So, yeah, tell us about that first aha moment that helped you that realize that you were on the right path.
I think I had 2 big ones.
Okay.
The first one is realizing that you can do it, and what you can do is up to you to decide. For me, it was deciding I could go from 50 to pick a number, you know, 2, 3, 4, 5, 600 transactions. Because I didn't change. I'm not a different human being. I probably more systematic, but it was just making the decision that that's what I wanted to do, identifying that that's what I want to do, finding people who've done it and learn from them. That was a huge aha. And then the second one is really realizing that just because you're in real estate, you don't have to do what everybody else does. So I say this quite a bit. I think our industry is one of the most incredible industries that I know of, because I haven't seen another industry where you can truly, if you're honest with yourself and figure out what your God-given gifts are, what you're naturally wired to do, what you love to do, and find a niche around that, you can be wildly successful. So, for example, I like numbers. I like investing. I've been investing my entire career. I own lots of rentals. I flip property. I lend hard money. I speak that language. So for me, hanging out with a bunch of investor folks who are going to talk about ROI and loss severity and IRR and all kinds of stuff that most people don't like to talk about, I thrive on it and enjoy it. I can produce value. I can show a unique selling proposition, and I love it. And then there's other folks who build a fantastic geographical business because they know the area. They're involved in the PTA. They're involved in their passions. And as long as you can identify that and get really good at it, I think that's the key of the business. I think we're in an era where, you know, it's been an interesting, since I got into real estate in 2002, I've been hearing that realtors were going to become obsolete because of technology. And about a month ago, I saw the CEO of Zillow speak, and as an industry, a technology industry in real estate, they've all come to a consensus. Realtors aren't going away.
Right.
Now, the ones that will survive are the ones who can deliver value above and beyond. Here's some MLS listings, and I can unlock the door, because anybody can get that information now. So where you become of value is when you can show them stuff and explain stuff that they don't have access to. Real estate is infrequent, highly complex, highly emotional transaction. It is on average done 6 or 7 times in an entire American family's life. Every time it changes, the markets change, the technologies change, the processes change. So there's a ton of value that can be delivered if you understand what value you're delivering to your clients.
So, that's an unbelievable statement that you just said, or that whole answer. Travel agents became obsolete because of, or for the most part, became obsolete because of technology. When it comes to realtors, a realtor that knows the inventory out there, that he shows a house, says, "Hey, let's I'm going to show you this 4-bedroom, 3-bath house. Your client doesn't like it," and he goes, "Hold on a second. The next street over, there's another 4-bedroom, and it's on the market for $600 or whatever." How important in terms of delivering value is things like knowing your inventory intimately well?
I think it's everything. I mean, that's I have a current client right now who's buying a $2 million home, and he owns a commercial investment REIT. They have global holdings all over the world, where they're doing $100 and $200 million transactions. And he goes, I have access to Trulia and Zillow. I can call a realtor and let them in. The reason you're representing me is because I want your opinion. I want your opinion of the neighborhood. I want your opinion of the construction. I want your opinion as the resale ability. Who will buy this house for me in 3 to 5 years if I do these things to it? So I think there's always value. If, again, you really need to have that conversation with yourself and be willing to invest and learn enough to be able to deliver the value.
Right. So, you are, you sell houses. You're doing phenomenally well. You are a hard money lender, which is awesome. I'd like to talk to you a little bit about that, as well as you have horizontal income from a bunch of rental houses. How do you, with all that stuff, Leo, how do you stay productive and focused on a day-to-day basis?
So I always say one of the hardest things I have to focus on is saying no. I have all kinds of interesting opportunities that come up, and my new favorite word is, what is noise?
Yep.
And, it's Pareto's Law. How much time am I spending? I just read Gary's book, The One Thing, and I started reading about 6 months ago and got a little sad because I realized how distracted I was and put it down and didn't want to read it again. But then I finally picked it up, and it's really drilling down to, okay, I have X amount of hours I work a week. Where are those hours being spent? And then if I break it down into silos, how much money is that making me?
Right.
Because it always comes down to, what am I making per hour? When I speak to large groups and people say, who's your first hire? I always say it's whom you don't expect. My first hire in real estate at 19 was a maid to come clean my apartment on Saturdays for $60, because what I would take on a Saturday or Sunday to do my laundry, clean the dishes, and get ready for the week. If I paid someone $60, I could do 2 showings and potentially make $5,000-$10,000. So you really need to understand what your time is worth. I always encourage folks who are starting to become disciplined, keep a notepad and write down what you do. If you look at that notepad and you're doing $8, $9, $10 an hour work, stop it. That's your first thing you let go.
Right. The ROI on cleaning your house is ridiculously low compared to selling a house. But what about for those people who, they're starting out and dollars are tight, right? I mean, how do you and they're like, wow, geez, $60, that's a full tank of gas that tomorrow I can show houses. How does somebody get there, Leo? I mean, I love that idea, but I think that's tough for a lot of people to implement.
So one of the folks I love listening to, whether it's speaking in public or reading his books, is Gary Vaynerchuk. I'm not sure you're familiar with him.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I actually just agreed to speak at a conference this summer because he was the keynote speaker, and I just wanted to meet him in person. Got to hang out for a little bit, but
cool.
I love his stuff because it's so weird. He's just work hard. You know, have a second job. Wait tables at night. Do whatever. If you want this bad enough, figure it out. You know, the average American watches 4.7 hours of television per day. That's up from 4.5 last year because of TiVo and Hulu and Netflix, because now we can watch whatever we want. And that's 7 days a week. That's 30 hours a week.
It's a work
so
week.
Wake up earlier. Yeah. Wake up earlier, go to bed later, figure it out. And if you can't, this business is not for you.
Yeah, you know, and Vaynerchuk's book, Crush It, is an awesome book. You know, what do you know now, Leo, that you wish you would have known when you started, if anything? You get a pretty good choice.
I mean, you know, that's the golden rule. There's a ton of stuff I wish I knew now than what I know now. But it's really willing to invest in yourself and just not being afraid to invest money and time and just do the work, do the repetition. And what do they say that Tiger Woods hits 3,000 balls a day? And how long has he been on top of the world? I mean, you have to be willing to do the work and go out and seek out knowledge.
Yeah, you know, and I've heard a good rule of thumb in terms of investing in yourself is, you know, invest. A lot of successful people I talk to, they tend to invest about 10% of what they make back into themselves.
Yeah, that's a good rule of thumb. And I would say, you know, when I was specializing in learning stuff, I spent more than that. But, you know, I wanted to go after probate. I found a guy in Southern California that does 150 probate deals a year. I called him. I said, will you teach me what you do? He said, write me a check for $2,500. Sent him a check, got on a plane, spent a day with him, got his scripts, and figured out how he did it. I haven't even implemented it yet, but before I went down that road and tried, I went and learned how somebody who does it very well does. I can't tell you how many times I hear realtors say, well, I'm trying this, I'm trying that. I'm like, well, so that's a good idea. What method are you going to use to track it?
Right.
When do you know that you spent enough money or enough time trying it to see if it was worth the ROI?
Yeah. Man, why don't people do that more often? I mean, I find that fascinating that a super successful guy like you, you're still looking for other opportunities to, I'll say exploit for the lack of a better word, but
I'll use a different word. I'll call it shift, market shift.
Okay.
And worked 6 months ago, 12 months ago, will not work. The only thing I'm 100% sure is the market will change and I'm going to have to shift. Right. And that's actually my value proposition to my clients. I can tell them, you know, I can show you 10 years that I've evolved, and this is what's happening right now. This is what you need to do if you want to be a buyer seller in this market.
You talked about Gary Keller's book, The One Thing. You know, we've had Dave Jenks on the show, and all through Dave's interview, he when talking about how to be successful, he really kept saying, you know, if you want to be successful, you have to be continually learning. You have to be learning based in everything you do. And I'm hearing that. I mean, that is an absolute theme with your story. Tell us one thing, Leo, right now that it's working for you in your business right now.
One thing?
Yeah, one thing.
Again, so I've developed a very specialized skill set. So, I'll tell you a couple things we're doing. We're working with infill builders who I live in the D.C. metro area, so space is rare. So we're finding older homes that are physically obsolete for the area that have a good size lot. My clients buy them between $400,000 and $600,000, tear it down, build a 4,000 to 5,000 square foot home, and then I'll list them for 1.2 to 1.3. So, again, these people have access to the MLS. They can find deals, but where I produce value is by finding opportunity that wasn't there for me.
Right.
How we do that? We go door knock. We find specific areas where that, our ideal candidate, the property is, and we go knock on their door. I had an appointment today with an investment group that sells 100 homes a year, and I had to get them a proposal, but they said, we have an agent on staff. We can do it ourselves, but what we want is an additional person who understands what we do to give a second opinion. And even if it costs us a little bit more, we'll outsource it if we get that value. I mean, I think the biggest thing realtors don't understand, and one of the things, people talk about is commission compression. And I think it all comes back to value. If you're not delivering value, why should you get paid that much?
Right. And as you said before, there's lots of different ways that you can deliver value. Let's talk about social media a little bit because that's, small businesses are moving towards that. Nobody has really cracked the code with Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, whatever. Do you use social media, and how do you use it?
So I think I was the last person to ever get Facebook. I still don't have a personal account. I just have a fan page. But, again, finding out how you're wired, I think that's the most important part. I don't like it. I'm not, I personally say I don't have time for it. So I do business in a very, sometimes I describe it as an old school way. I have probably 10 clients that give me 500 deals a year. And because the skill sets and the relationships I've developed, I can do that kind of business. But if you're naturally inclined and you like it, there's, I'd go learn from Gary Vee to see how you leverage that. But it's not something I want to go after. To me, that would go in the noise category for me. I'm not saying that social media isn't fantastic, because I know folks that do big business with it. But I think whenever someone's listening to calls like this, it's really listening to what resonates with whom you are. Because if you're doing something that you don't like, you're not going to do it very long.
Yeah. It's funny that you're talking about Gary Vaynerchuk. If somebody out there in the audience searches best tweets for real estate agents, Gary Vaynerchuk, he wrote a blog post, and I actually reposted it, and it was 13 tweets a realtor should have answered instead of me. And basically he did, you can do a Twitter search, twitter.com/search, and he searched real estate, and he found all these people that were talking about real estate. Hey, I need to find a new house, or I'm moving. And Gary, and he's a super successful guy, answered those tweets, and not one realtor did. So that's interesting. What about Zillow and Trulia? Do you do any marketing on those sites? And how's that?
I'm sorry, say that again.
Sites like Zillow and Trulia are also social media in a specialized kind of way. Do you do any marketing on those sites?
That's a great question. I think part of the answer to it is you need to stay open. So once upon a time, there was house values and home gain and all that stuff 10 years ago. And I signed up for all of them and wasted money, and nothing came of it. And I kind of just said, it doesn't work. I was at a Boomtown Unite event about a month ago for all the other brokers that have a Boomtown account. And I heard some fantastic success stories with both. So I'm looking into it to see if, how much money to spend per month, and then decide how many months I'm going to try it. And again, this is how I would make a decision. If I'm going to spend money on a software or something like that, I would seek out who are the most 5 successful people using the platform, find out exactly how they're using it, how they're leveraging it, how they're converting it,
yep,
how much they're spending, and how long it took to get there. Because what happens is you hear, I closed 86 transactions with Zillow last year. Well, how long did you spend money before you actually converted one? What drip follow-up system? Is that a 6-month incubation period? Is that a 12-month incubation period? Do you have the people or the stamina to do it yourself?
Yep.
Are you that good on email? Do you have a BlackBerry or an iPhone or an email-capable phone that you can respond immediately? Because if you don't respond to internet leads within the first 5 minutes, they're worthless. So be willing to do all that before spending $1. Because so many people say, well, do you think that's a good idea? And if I said on this call, yeah, it's a great idea, I do it, people might go get an account, but forgot to ask 10 other questions before making that informed decision.
And I'll tell you, for you personally, as well as people in the audience, if you listen to, there's a question I ask all the time, and you could probably figure out all that stuff from listening to some of my interviews. And I will tell you, high level, for some people have described it as, they were drinking out of a water hose, and then they started drinking out of a fire hose. And other people go, I get nothing out of it. Have you considered writing a book, Leo? I mean, I'm way off topic here, but I mean, there's so much in this. We spent 28 minutes together, and there's so much good stuff. I think you could write a book. Have you thought about that?
I do, but it goes back to what we talked about at the beginning.
ROI.
What's my priority? And
right.
As you know, I always my buddy and I always say, I have mentors that are in their 50s and 60s, and I'm talking about 50, 100 million net worth. I say to them, you're a made man. I'm still a man in the making. So to me, it's all about what I'm building, how I'm being smart about it, how I'm removing leverage so I have assets that, can take care of me, and I don't have to work this hard for the rest of my life.
Okay, that's a good answer. Again, because you're a wealth of knowledge, I'm going to ask you kind of a kooky question. What is something I didn't ask you, but I should have asked you?
That is a good question. We covered quite a bit in 30 minutes.
Okay.
I would kind of just reiterate everything we talked about. I think before folks get into this industry is really sit down and decide if you want to do what it takes. I mean, real estate is not a job, it's a lifestyle. Are you prepared to talk about it with all your friends? Are you prepared to approach everyone you know and ask for business? And if the answer is no, ask yourself why. And figure out what you would need to get comfortable in order for that to be a yes. And that normally goes back to, are you willing to do the work to learn everything you need to do and be able to deliver that level of value?
Good answer. Well, we're at the wrapping up here. We're at the Ask the Agent round, and this is where I fire off questions, and you come back at us with answers that hopefully will help each of our audience members move the needle in their own businesses. If you could recommend only one book, what would it be?
I mean, I can't answer that. I'd give you authors I like. So, especially getting started, I would read a bunch of Dave Ramsey books. I mean, I think the biggest hurdle folks had in getting into this business is cash flow.
Yeah.
And I think, again, without getting completely sidetracked, it comes back to how we live as a country. You have to be willing to live like nobody else so you can live like nobody else, which is a Dave Ramsey quote. Are you willing to get rid of the big house or the big car or the payments and live much smaller in order to be able to grow? As you're growing, a small nut every month is the fastest way to grow faster. So, how can you reduce your expenses by a third so you don't need 6 months in the bank at the same number when you were considering getting into real estate, and be willing to make those sacrifices? And then outside of being a Keller agent, I think Gary's books are fantastic. Whether it's you're a real estate agent, the One Thing, Shift, just really understand your craft. I mean, I can't tell you how many agents, I always give the example that, on the appointment is when they practice. Yeah. Become masterful of your scripts. You're a professional athlete doesn't practice at the game. They practice all week, 6 hours a day. So the game is easy. There's not a objection I haven't heard or haven't role played thousands of times when I'm at an appointment. And I always sound like I have the answer. It's not because I'm smarter than anybody else, because I've studied my craft and gotten really good at answering questions.
Yeah. Well, you started that off with basically you answered that, you should, with that Dave Ramsey quote, it was about having a budget, and watching your cash flow. And that's important because just like internet companies, they go out and raise venture capital and they want to raise as much as they can because they want to extend that runway. The longer runway you have, the more likely you're going to achieve success. So I love that answer. Do you have an internet tool like an Evernote that you're in love with that you can share with our audience?
No.
Yeah.
I have a little notepad that sits on my desk. I mean, again, I when it comes to technology and systems, I always tell people, find one that you will use, because there's all kinds of incredible software and CRM out there. But if it's too complicated, or it doesn't have the features or compatibility to your other software, just like simple to-dos. I mean, a book that kind of changed my way of organizing and planning was Getting Things Done by David Allen, GTD. And he's got a whole methodology that plugs into your Outlook and everything else. But again, so I have an issue like that. I research it, find out who's pretty well known for it. I actually spent $900 and took his one-day class because the book was really boring and I learned audibly. So I went and took the one-day seminar, and that changed the way I organize.
Wow. Well, I want to talk about some of your personal habits that have contributed to your success. And before you answer that, well, here's a question. Do you have any personal habits that have contributed to your success? And what you said earlier, you wake up at 6 a.m., you work out, you take care of your body, you eat clean meals. What are some of the other personal habits that have contributed to your success?
It's just really about your mind, your state of mind, and who you surround yourself with, and what comes in. I mean, like you said, the 4 people that you're closest to is who you are, and that is so true. My my peer group, my friends think at a high level, do incredible things. And like I mentioned, I have a group of gentlemen I call my uncles that have, done very incredible things. And just hearing their stories make what I do feel small and make me think I'm not thinking big enough. I'm not pushing myself hard enough.
Wow.
And I constantly think, am I wasting my time doing this thing if it's not going to get me to the next level? So, I think one of the things I'm very conscious about, if I were constantly around everybody else and I was the biggest fish in the room, I'm obviously in the wrong fit or the wrong room. I want to be around people who are going to show me, guide me, teach me, because if I'm the only one in the room with anything to teach, it might feel good for your ego, but that's not going to help you grow at all.
Yeah. Wow. Well, what are the first 3 steps a new agent should do to begin building his business in the next 10 days?
Have a database. Put every person qualify them if you were to be the realtor of choice, and then ask them if you can stay in touch with them. I think the basic concept of a sphere of influence is the most powerful thing, is the cheapest thing to do. And if you don't know anybody, go build one, go knock on doors, go meet people, go get in front of centers of influence. That's, the definition of SOI, and start building that. It's the cheapest, fastest way to build a business.
Yeah, I love that. So, database and stay in touch with them. How do you do that? You earlier, you're technology enough that you were talking about drip campaigns, but how do you, once I have that database with names in it, how do I continue to ping them as I go along?
That's kind of the easy part in this world of technology, and you can just buy off the shelf stuff, whether it's Keller Williams 33 Touch or any of the other multiple touch points, but just figure out a way. And I live in the city with the worst traffic in the United States. We're now officially worse than LA. And half the time is while I'm sitting in traffic, I literally scroll through my phone, find a name I haven't called in a while, and call them. You would be blown away. Perfect example. I went to happy hour with my team yesterday. A contractor we sent a lot of business to invited us out. It's very nice. A gentleman comes over from across the room, said, "Hey, Leo, I haven't seen you in 3 or 4 years. This single person has bought probably 15 homes for me, and I haven't called him in 2 years." Oh. I asked him, because the market's really come back, and he really bought well and sold, and that's why we did so many transactions for him. He said he's sitting on $2 million, and then when you do grab lunch, he needs to figure out where to put it.
Yeah, and you know what that ties into, Leo, that I think a lot of realtors don't think about, but internet people do, is it's called lifetime value, and that is, you have a client, you sell them a piece of property, but over the course of the lifetime of your relationship, I mean, he might be like that guy, buy 15 houses. So I think that's why you want to keep in touch with them. But hey, Leo, give us one piece of parting guidance and let us know where we can find you, and we'll sign off.
Again, I think I've said it over and over again. Really sit down and figure out if this is what you want to do. And the way to answer that is find someone whose business you'd like to achieve or emulate. Go figure out what it is it takes to do that and make that decision. Because as an industry, I get upset because I think it's touted to be much easier than it really is. And if folks knew what it would take, they may have made a different decision. But I still think it is the most fantastic opportunity available to folks without huge, barriers of entry like a lot of other industries. You don't need a couple $100,000 to get into real estate like you do to, buy a franchise for a Subway or something like that. So, I mean, the money that can be made in this industry for the required, investment is unparalleled.
I agree. Unparalleled. Well, Leo, hey, thanks so much for coming on the show. I mean, this whole time, I mean, you were just, there's tons of actual, advice just oozing out of you. So I can't thank you enough, and we'll see you around. And hopefully, maybe, I'd love to have you on the show again and maybe dig into something like building a niche for yourself or something.
Sounds great, Joey. Thank you for having me.
All right. See you, Leo. Okay, you heard it, folks. That was Leo Pareja. What a fantastic interview. I was pumped up doing that one the whole time. In this episode, Leo urged all of us to get a mentor or get a coach. And for him, that was the key to his early success. And even now, after being super successful, he still has a coach, and he still reaches out and he tries to find those rooms where he's not the smartest guy in the room, where he might be the dumbest guy in the room. That is the area or place where he finds personal growth. Leo is also a big proponent of investing in yourself. He said it over and over again. Invest your money, invest your time. If you have to, scale back your current lifestyle to give yourself a bigger runway to find success in your niche. And Leo said that more than a few times. Go out and find a specialty, whether that's a specialty in terms of a product or a specialty in a current market area. I really hope that you enjoyed this interview as much as I have. If you have enjoyed it and you want to continue getting these free coaching sessions, please, it will help me a lot. Go to iTunes and leave a rating and review. And if you really want to help, send me an email. Send my personal email, toby@superagentslive.com. Sometimes I've been doing this now for 3 months, and sometimes I'm not sure if what I'm doing here is helping people. So let me know. And if you think this is helpful to you, I would love it if you shared it with your friends. If you could help us grow our audience, I would be forever in your debt. So until next time, I'm Toby Salgado, and I personally thank you for listening to Super Agents Live.
Let's go. Yeah. For those of you that want to know what we're all about, it's like this, y'all. This is 10% luck, 20% skill, 15% concentrated